Okay, so we should be back live. Oh, good. My microphone is working this time. Welcome to Nintendo Super Podcast, guys. I hope no one left, but I understand it's getting late. But we're going to get the show on the road. We got a lot to talk about, and I'm glad that things are working now. So, Brandon, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good. Been having a good week. A lot of cool stuff was shown in that Nintendo Direct, which of course we'll be discussing. And overall, I just think it's been a good week. I'm very excited about and happy about how the Direct went. So that'll be fun to discuss.
No, yeah, it was good for sure. Definitely, it was really good. A lot to talk about. But I mean, I guess I feel like I was talking about something in the beginning of our failed stream beforehand. So I'm just going to talk about it now. I've been playing Metroid Samus Returns, and I've been using it with this special capture card 3DS to record footage. I have a new 3DS as well, but I mean, I just realized, because I changed around the cables for my new 3DS, not my new 3DS, my capture card 3DS to play, and it works a lot better now. So it's cool. I don't know, it's just kind of fun to play on a bigger screen with stereo. I guess that's kind of like one of the big premises for the Switch, right? So the game's cool. We're gonna be talking about Metroid at some point during the show, so don't worry, guys, for those who are tuning in. But we have a lot to talk about today. A lot. And Sony's conference is coming in a few hours, and that could have some revelations for us Nintendo fans or gamers as a whole. So that's something to be excited about as well. We will touch on that at some point too. So yeah, there's just a lot to talk about, and I do kind of know where to start. But I guess I'm just sort of summarizing things in a very roundabout fashion. But anyways, Brandon, you said you had a list ready. Do you want to kind of just go over the games that were announced so people have that fresh in their mind?
Yeah, you want me to go over everything or just the new games?
Whatever. I mean,
I have the whole list.
Whatever you think is most important.
Yeah, I don't think it'll take that long, so I just go over, kind of recap the Direct. So, of course, they showed off Mario Odyssey, and they showed off the Mario Odyssey bundle. They showed off more of Xenoblade Chronicles 2, and they had the special edition. Of course, they showed off Project Octopath Traveler, and they got the demo. Doom and Wolfenstein 2, the new Colossus, were announced. Kirby 2018 got a new name, Kirby Star Allies, and will be coming out spring. So we got that. Splatoon 2 got new DLC. ARMS got DLC, which actually came out that day, which was pretty surprising. Farm Warriors got talked about. They announced Arcade Archives. Snipperclips got new DLC and a new repackaging called Snipperclips Plus. Cut it out together. Of course, Skyrim got the release date of November 17th. Rocket League got talked about. Dragon Quest Builders was announced, because we already knew about Dragon Quest Builders 2, but now Dragon Quest Builders 1 was announced. LA Noire was talked about. They talked about all of the sports games, of course. And let's see, anything else big? Murphy's Law was, of course, talked about. Arena of Valor, and then they talked about a lot of indie games. Then, of course, we got the Amiibo stuff, but that's not that important. More stuff was talked about Pokemon Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. We got the fact that the new 2DS XL, the new colors, will be coming. The ones that were exclusive to Japan are coming to America now, which would be the white and orange one. Mario Party, the top 100 was announced. Kirby Battle Royale was talked about. Lane Mystery Journey. And overall, everything. Minecraft was announced for the new 3DS, and pretty much everything else was just stuff we already knew about, just kind of recapping. So, yep, that was pretty much a good summary of what.
All right. Well, thanks for that recap, Brandon. So, Red Ninja, you ask, you're not entirely sure what this direct. Well, not this direct. It's not a direct. What this stream is about. Well, basically, this stream is a podcast, and we're talking about the Nintendo Direct that happened last week, and we're just gonna give it our thoughts on what happened, what we expected, just, I guess, basically talking about the Direct as a whole and what it means for Nintendo, and just kind of talking about what was shown off and what it means. So, there's a lot to talk about. I had certain expectations, but I also had certain predictions that I thought might be possible. Like, I thought we might see Smash Brothers. I thought that might happen. Yeah. But we didn't get it, and, in retrospect, it's, of course not. Why? It was a September Direct.
Yeah, that was like not really gonna happen.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I think the thing is, though, is that when we saw that the Direct was gonna be 45 minutes long, right? We just started getting extremely excited. So it's just kind of like, our hype overload just started happening. It's like, well, 45 minutes. What are they going to talk about? 45 minutes. That's too much time. And the thing is that was a lot of time back in the Wii U days. Back in the Wii U days, we didn't really have games, not that many. But now we have a lot of games. So that 45 minutes is not because Nintendo has the huge Megaton ready. It's because they have a lot of games now. The Switch ecosystem has tons of games. We're getting third-party support. It's happening. And not just like simple games or whatever. We're getting some killer apps. You know, we're going to get into the detail later, but the fact that Bethesda announced Doom and Wolfenstein 2 coming to the Switch, and LA Noire is also coming to the Switch, it's just kind of like, and then FIFA and NBA 2K are also pretty close to their you know, PS4, Xbox One counterparts. The Switch is getting, you know, big games, like home console traditional games. It's playing them and it's looking pretty good. It's not like, so here's the thing, right? We've seen a little bit of footage of the Doom game, right? And it looks like the PS4 version. Like the difference, I mean, obviously we haven't had, you know, hard, yeah, exactly. So like, remember the PS2 GameCube era? Like the visual fidelity between those two systems was actually, you could tell, it was much easier to tell the difference between those or an Xbox than it is between the Switch and the PS4 and nowadays. Okay, so if you consider that, right, the visual difference, like what we can see and perceive, is not as significant as back then when they all ran the same games. And if you can run the same games, look pretty close, and you can play it portably and play all your Nintendo games and indie games and obviously third-party support, which we're talking about, things are looking really good. So even though we didn't get like a big shocker like Smash Bros. Or Animal Crossing or Pikmin, we saw a lot of third-party games, and it's just hopefully the beginning of it. Well, it is showing more proof that this third-party situation is getting better and better on the Switch. And I mean, the Switch this is great. It's great news in a way. We got a Megaton, but not like an obvious Megaton, if that makes any sense.
Not the way we're thinking.
Right, exactly.
Not in the way we're thinking.
Exactly. Do you have any sense to add on that, Brandon?
Yeah, I guess I think the Direct was really, really good. I think even though it could have been a little bit better if we got some Megaton announcement, but I think in a way we did, as you were saying, with those third parties and just how close they are to the PS4 and Xbox One versions. When I saw the difference between Doom on the PS4 and Doom on the Switch, I was like, that's like the difference between like the PS4 and Xbox One versions, or less than that. It's like, I'd expect to see a bigger jump between the PS4 and Xbox One than we are seeing between the PS4 and the Switch, which is crazy because the PS4 is likely almost 2 times as powerful as the Switch. Let's be honest here.
Right, but that's even not that much in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, it's not. But even at the X1's top, like, as fast as it can be, it's like a little bit more than half of what the PS4 can do. So to be getting visual fidelity this close means that third parties are actually trying. Because it's not like it's unachievable, but it takes work to get, when the power difference is that large, it takes work to get it that close. And I think it's a good sign that third parties are willing to put in work in order to get the Switch to run as well as it can. Because some third parties with the Wii U, I mean, they just didn't do that. They didn't make it run to its full potential. They just kind of slapped it on there and was like, well, it runs how it runs, and we're not optimizing it.
Yeah, well, I mean, part of that problem is that Nintendo created an ecosystem now that's really easy for developers. Back on the Wii U, a lot of reports I heard were it was disastrous, it was painful, no one wanted to develop for the Wii U. It was just a miserable experience. But the Switch, because Nintendo partnered with NVIDIA, everyone understands how the architecture works. They all have all these APIs that make it easier for developers to put their assets and games onto the system very quickly, and you know it just makes sense. And on top of that, I say this a lot, right? But it really needs to be stressed because the Switch is also portable. It makes developers want to put their games on the system more. Because think about this, right? Everyone would love to have a version of their game that can go everywhere. If it goes everywhere, that means more people can play it. Mobile gameplay is more mainstream, so if you can reach a more mainstream audience, it means more sales, right? So the idea that people can play Skyrim on the go is a huge selling point, and people are going to buy Skyrim just for that. So if developers can get their games running relatively easy on this system that can also make their console games portable with little optimization, right, or modifications to the optimization maybe, but not like actual modification to the coding here, like serious. Like it's a huge cash cow, and the only reason developers didn't jump on sooner is because of how bad Nintendo's relationship with third parties has been in the past. But they're fixing it now. They're changing it. This is a new Nintendo. We are really actually seeing evidence for it now. I'm pretty excited for Doom. I mean, yeah, it came out last year, but it's still good. And Wolfenstein's coming soon as well. And you know, this is just the beginning. We're gonna be getting more. And then of course we're getting, you know, other third-party games that aren't coming out on other systems, like, you know, Project Octopath.
Yeah.
I was hoping you were just gonna like jump in, Brandon's like, oh, I love the Project Octopath. It's so good. I just love it. I really like it so far, by the way, just saying. I haven't played the whole demo yet, but what I've played is pretty magnificent.
Oh, I guess if you want to go on the Project Octopath Traveler tangent, we can do that.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I just kind of like just threw it on you right there.
Nice, just go!
Yeah.
Thoughts now! Put you on point.
Yeah.
That demo was freaking amazing. It was like, before, I was kind of just looking at it like, oh, that's got a cool art style. Oh, that might be cool. It looks like, you know, I mean, it's an RPG made by Square. It's probably going to be pretty good. But playing that demo was like, this is something else. This is something above and beyond what my expectations were. It had good story, great characters, an amazing combat system, and the art style is, the more you play it, just like, I mean, YouTube compression does not, just doesn't hold up. It doesn't give it justice. Like, you have to play this game in person. It looks absolutely stunning. And some people are like, oh, it's 8-bit. It's like, oh, what? That can't look good. No, 8-bit looks amazing, especially with the new Unreal Engine 4 lighting effects. I mean, it's not really, but it is very. It's very much like. It's weird, but
well, here's the thing. But the way I would word it, well, they're calling it HD 2D, right? So
yeah,
the point of it, right, is that back in like the Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis days, right, there were some real, even the NES and Sega Master System days, there were a lot of 2D games, like, you know, what's that big game that is being remade for PlayStation and not Nintendo? Secret of Mana.
Secret of Mana, yeah.
There are these games that are like that, or Chrono Trigger, that people really, really loved and were amazing, but they were 2D RPGs. So this game is kind of like an homage to that, but it's taking it to another level. And when you understand the roots and the heritage for what this game is inspired by, it's really, really cool. And I'm pretty sure it's being made by the Bravely Default team, and they've made some great games on 3DS. But now even though it may not immediately look like your typical AAA kind of game, this game is beautiful. It looks different, and it's doing something different. It feels different, and it's really cool. But at the same time, it is paying homage to that grand history of 2D RPGs that were really, really good.
Yeah, I agree. And it's surprising just how much like effort is seemingly put into this game. Like even down to simple stuff like voice acting. There is a surprisingly huge amount of voice acting in this game, even for just like side characters, like random just ruffians around will have actual voice acting and stuff, and it's just crazy that amount of effort is being put into this RPG. The surface, it may look simple, but when you get into it, it's a lot deeper and more meaningful. I don't know what the words are that I'm looking for here, but it's a lot deeper and cooler, I guess, than it looks on the surface.
Yeah. I mean, well, you know, that's all perspective, right? Because I think it looks... But, like I said, I understand the point, though, because the thing is, when I first saw the game, you know, I was like, oh, the game, even though it looked really cool, like, different, like, unique, it still wasn't, you know, like your typical... It didn't look like Doom, you know? It didn't look like Doom or Skyrim or Breath of the Wild. So I was just kind of like, oh, Square Enix isn't really trying, you know? But now we're seeing other games like Doom and such. They're kind of making us feel better about that. But that's the problem, right? Because when we first saw it, we didn't see proof that we'd be getting the big AAA games like Wolfenstein, you know.
True.
But we're getting it, you know. So that's great. And now that we have that knowledge, and Fantasy 15 may be making it to the system, we can look at this game and appreciate it for what it really is. And as I said before, it's an homage to some of the greatest RPGs of all time. But also, it's creating it's new. It's new. It's not just old. It's new, and I think there's something really special here. We're hearing lots of people rave about the demos. What I've played so far, I've really enjoyed. And, well, I can't wait to get my hands on this game. I'm pretty much already sold on it. And, you know, we haven't had any reviews, no real previews. So, Nintendo and Square are doing a good job with this, I think. At least in terms of marketing it.
True. I think this game is going to be really, really special. Really good. And just the fact there's it seems like there's a lot of content. Like, even in the demo, there was some grinding and stuff that I did just to keep the demo alive because I wanted to play it that much. But I literally played it for 2.5 to almost 3 hours. I was playing that single demo, and you couldn't even bear it. There like wasn't a whole lot you were allowed to do in that demo. Yet I squeezed almost 3 hours out of it. Like, this is gonna be a big game. It seems like there's actually gonna be 8 separate, seemingly fully fleshed out stories that somehow interconnect in some ways. Like, it's the same world, but you have different characters, and they all have their own unique personalities and aspects and ways of going about.
They have their own stories, right? They start at different locations, right?
They all have their own stories. They all start at different locations. They all have their own reasons for being there. And, like, even though it's the same world, there's very different things you're supposed to be doing, and even different ways that the characters play is very unique. With a lot of different abilities that they can do are very different. They play very different than each other, at least so far. Of course, we've only been able to play 2 characters, so we can't completely say that's going to be the case at the time. But from what we've seen, the 2 characters they showed are very different for each other, and even like the story beats feel very different. And Primrose is a very dark, very mature kind of storyline. Well, Ulbrich is just kind of a lighthearted, we're adventuring kind of like.
Yeah, I started the I've only been playing the Primrose run so far, so I haven't tried the other character yet, and I'm just like, wow, this is pretty dark. Like, she's basically a hooker, you know. Yeah. She's being used as a hooker, but her ultimate goal is to kill 3 people who screwed up her father's life and her life.
Yeah.
So it is pretty dark. You know, living as a hooker for the sake of revenge. You know, that's it's interesting to say the least. I'll say that much. You know, and it's really cool. I mean, I really like the boost system, by the way. I just think it's cool that you can just like power up, and then the lighting is beautiful too. So every time you boost, it changes, and you just like, oh, I boosted 4 times. I'm ready to just completely annihilate whatever in front of me. You know, it's kind of like, in a way, it's almost like kind of like going Super Saiyan, then Super Saiyan 2, then Super Saiyan 3, and then just blowing everything up. So it's really cool. Yeah, I love power-ups and transformations. It's what every game should have. Every game should have power-ups and transformations. I hope the next Zelda game, Link powers up. I'm just kidding. Yeah. Well, I mean, you know, not entirely. You know, so, but yeah, it's a really cool game, and I want to delve more into that system and see what it's all about. Want to see if it's deeper. I've heard some people say that they think it's really the demo yet to not say for sure. But I mean, so far, aside from the boost system and the lighting and the style of it and the story, which is a lot, I haven't seen anything that's really, really new yet. You know, groundbreaking, I guess I could say, right? But what I've played is really good, and I mean that much. You know. What else do you need? If the game's good, that's good enough, right? But maybe there's more to it than that. Like I said, I've only I've enjoyed it. That's pretty much all I can say right now.
Sums it up.
So let's just talk about a random game that I want to talk about. Morphy's Law. We saw it again, even though it got it's you know some of its limelight in the the indie show. We got to see it again. You know, we didn't see that many indies during the direct, but we saw Morphy's Law. I mean, it's coming out soon, which is probably part of the reason. But I think this game it's not just I think don't sleep on this game, guys. I think this is going to be a very interesting game. Like, if you pay attention to this shooting style, it's very different. You know, it's like Splatoon. It's like this different kind of way to play an online third-person shooter. We're getting another online third-person shooter that has an entirely different, unique take on that genre, and I think it has some potential to really, separate itself from the rest of the pack and stand out. So this could be a big hit, guys. I mean, I don't know for sure, obviously. I'm just saying, don't sleep on this. Pay attention to it. It could be really good.
Yeah, I think it's really, really unique, and I think that's really, in a genre that's so stale these days, it stands out very much. So I think it could be very good. I don't know. I mean, it doesn't have the AAA, money behind it or names behind it like new IP from Nintendo would, but I still think it can be very, very good. So, especially if Nintendo helps them out a little bit, maybe shows them a few things. I don't know, helps them with some modes or something, or I don't know what they could do, but get the experience of Nintendo mixed with this game, I think would be really cool. So I think this game is going to be really good. I'll definitely be checking it out. Hopefully they come up with a demo. I think this is the kind of game that really would benefit from a demo. Like, even more than Octopath Traveler. Like, Splatoon got it, like, these kind of, like,
the problem, here's the thing, the problem with more is an indie game, right? Octopath Traveler is not an indie game. It's got that full backing by Square Enix, you know, made by a pretty damn good development team. Or Morphe's Law is an indie game. You know, I'm not saying the guys who aren't good, but it doesn't have, it's not gonna be as big as, you know, some other shooters out there. That doesn't mean it's not gonna have content. I'm just saying it's not gonna be as big. It doesn't have that backing, and the thing is, like, if you put a demo for an indie game, I think there's more of a risk, right? Because it's already an indie game, so you're not investing that much to even try it out. You know what I mean? So, I'm not saying there won't ever be a demo. There could be a demo, but I think with indie games, you see demos less often because indie games don't require a $60 price tag. You know, a lot of times you don't want to put down $60 if you don't know if you like a game. But if you see a free demo, that gives you an opportunity to see if you actually like the game. With an indie game, since a lot of times they're either 10, 5, 20 bucks, they don't really see the need for a demo. So,
it's true.
I'm not saying I wouldn't like one. I'm just saying I wouldn't expect one. Just, you know, putting that out there.
Yeah, I'm not expecting one. I'm just saying I think it could benefit from having a demo.
Right. Right. I mean, I understand what you're saying because it's different. Yeah.
The unfortunate thing about indies is that they don't have that big AAA backing. They don't have a lot of money a lot of the time. I mean, some indies have ridiculous amounts of money because they get, like, ridiculous amounts of backing and they can do whatever they want. But a lot of indies aren't that way. It's like, it just isn't. They don't have a lot of money. They just have to deal with what they have and get it done. And so I think that can be very unfortunate because sometimes it can limit the potential of a game or a studio just not having that money, even because if they could have that money, they could do so much more. But indies do a pretty good job of utilizing what little funds they have and making great games out of it. And just knowing the fact that their stuff has to be good, it has to sell, otherwise they could lose a lot more than these AAA people are going to lose.
I mean, it's all they got. They don't usually have.
I think it pushes them.
Yeah.
It pushes them to make their games better.
Right. It's kind of one of those things where, like, there are some companies, right, that get so big that they get to a point where even when they fail, it's not a problem. Like, they get to a point of no return. Right? So I remember, well, when I say remember, I don't remember anything. I remember from a book I read, not from the time when it was said. But the old original president for the Nintendo, the gaming Nintendo, right, they got into the gaming world, Yamauchi, there was something he said after the NES era, and that was, no one will beat Nintendo, no one will ever take down Nintendo. Now, this guy was a really hardcore, like, kind of mafioso kind of guy, very competitive, you know, and, you know, I don't know how there is some truth to what he said. He wasn't just bolstering it, because the thing is, Nintendo was extremely successful with the NES era. There was like 7 years where they had like no competition. So Nintendo became synonymous with gaming, and they gained a lot of money. They had a lot of marketing with Mario. They made tons of money on Mario products. Mario cereal, Mario shows, Mario keychains, Mario everything. So they just made a lot of money and built up their development teams. So that's basically the point I'm getting at, is that there are companies like Nintendo, right, or even bigger companies like Microsoft, where they can afford to fail, right? But there are, you know, when you have development teams like, I mean, look at the Xbox brand. I'm not saying Xbox isn't good. It is, but most of the Xbox investment, like all of it, has not made Microsoft money, right? It's kind of more just out there, like, hey, look, we make game system, it's cool, you know? But because Microsoft is so huge, they can afford to take those losses. Developers who are like making things like Morphe's Law or Shovel Knight, if the game doesn't make any money, they don't eat, you know? If Bill Gates launches Halo 16, you know, Armada edition or whatever, and it loses $1 billion, he's gonna eat tomorrow. You know, like that. I mean, that's basically the point I'm getting at. That it's what you're saying, Brandon. That smaller developers can't afford to take losses, so they have to be a little bit more careful, in a way, because they also are more inventive because they want to be separated from the pack because they want people to notice their games.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Which is why some indie games come out and they're amazing, like Stardew Valley and Shovel Knight and games like those, where they're just absolutely incredible, and people hold them up as almost as if they were AAA big titles, and yet they're just made by a couple people. It's like normal people just wanting to make games.
Just
let me
comment on some of Pop Slayer's chats. Yo, dude, yeah. So you know, I am looking for people to maybe guest in the future. So just stay tuned. I just want to figure out how to do it because there are multiple people that want to guest, and I can't take on everyone. And you know, this discussion that I'm doing with Brandon, I do want to keep it relatively professional. So I have to be careful about who I just put on randomly. But at the very least, I'm considering like a podcast with, at some points, with, you know, different viewers. So just stay tuned. I am paying attention. I know you guys want to get on the show. It's just there's a lot of different things I gotta do. But just letting you know, I'm paying attention. So yeah, sorry to interrupt you, Brian. I just felt like, you know, that needed to be addressed. I didn't want to leave Pop Slayer hanging. Yeah. So
that makes sense.
But I mean, yeah, man. I hope Morphe's Law is successful because I think
me too.
I mean, you know, maybe the game sucks and it's just a complete travesty of gaming, and I shouldn't want it to be successful, right? But from what I've seen so far, it's a very unique idea, and I think it has the potential to be a really, really good game. So,
I do. And I think there may be. I don't. It's hard to say how much content is going to be, or if it will be worth the content, because we don't know how. First off, we don't know how much money this is going to cost.
Right.
Second off, we don't know how much content there's actually going to be in the game. So there's a lot of unknowns to whether or not this game could be good or bad. Plus, we don't even know if the content we do know of plays any good at all. So there's a lot of unknowns, but I see the potential here, especially if they get a couple more modes in, because right now we only know really the one mode.
Yeah.
And we only seen one map, and it doesn't. I mean, it looks kind of generic. It doesn't, but that doesn't mean it is. I mean, when we first saw Splatoon, what did we know about? We saw Turf War, and we saw like one, maybe two maps.
Well,
that was
honestly, when I saw Splatoon for the first time, my reaction to it is a little similar to my reaction to Morphe's Law. Not entirely the same, because I saw this game from Nintendo, I'm like, oh, this is a weird kiddie game. Blah. Right, but then I didn't turn my head though. I continued watching just in case, and then I started seeing these weird mechanics where you can like swim through walls and floors and jump, and I was like, wait a second, a shooter where you can hide and jump into walls and then fly and swim through grates and crates and stuff, and I'm just like, wait, that actually sounds really unique and cool. You know, and then sure enough, Splatoon 2 is a really unique and cool shooter that tons of people love, and it's one of the most interesting new Nintendo IP that have come out in recent years. So yeah, and Morphe's Law, I mean, it's not made by Nintendo, but you know, there could be something there that's really special.
Obviously, Nintendo thinks so. They keep showing it.
Right, they're back.
Obviously, they see something in the game.
Yeah, definitely. So how it turns out. Keep your eyes on it, guys. Morphe's Law. It's gonna be a good one, maybe. So let's just talk about something else. Unless there's something you want to move on to. Oh, if you have anything to bring up, Brandon, just do it. But I was thinking maybe we could talk about the lack of a Zelda DLC trailer. Completely shift direction of this conversation. I saw the amiibo. I expected to see something about the Zelda DLC, and we kind of did. I wasn't wrong. I did say, oh, we're gonna see something about the Zelda DLC. We saw the amiibo, and we got to see a little bit better understanding what they'll add to the game. But we didn't get any sort of DLC trailer for DLC 2, and the DLC trailer for DLC 2 is probably gonna be a bigger deal than the one for DLC 1.
True.
Which may also be the reason why we didn't see anything yet, because there could be a lot that they're adding to this game. We don't really know. And you know what? I'm gonna put. Nintendo said they're only adding one dungeon. I think there may be more than one dungeon. I don't know for sure, but it's one of those things where like they're promising at least one dungeon. No one's gonna be upset if they add more. And it wouldn't be the first time Nintendo's promised certain things for DLC, and when the DLC finally comes out, we get more than what we were told we were going to get. I mean, that's pretty much what happened with DLC 1. But no one told us we were going to be getting all these different armors, you know, but they added that on top of what they said we were going to be getting for it. So whatever we're to be told to expect for DLC 2, I'm actually kind of expecting a little bit more than that. Not a lot more, but a little bit more. So we'll see, but like I said, that's a lot of stuff. We're talking about story, at least one dungeon, you know, different new challenges added to the overworld. What does that mean exactly? Well, there's so much you could do, you know, there's so much you could do. I mean, I've had theories where maybe it's all taking place after, you know, you beat the game and you defeat Ganon, and you're traveling around with Zelda, so now you have to add Zelda to the game and make her a part of the gameplay, right? And then my idea is that all the ruins throughout Breath of the Wild, you would fix, you would restore, kind of like that side quest where you basically build the whole town. What if they did like that, but for the whole world? But there's also different kinds of monsters. There are vestiges left of the Calamity Ganon darkness, and there's this new, maybe this other dungeon that erupts, and somehow Zelda's kidnapped at some point when you restore enough towns. I don't know. Maybe they'll add the Minish to the game. We know that they actually designed the Minish Cap people, and they were playing around with them in development for Breath of the Wild. So maybe there'll be a whole new species in town will be added to the game. See, there's a lot of different things they could do. So I don't know if they're ready yet. And I think that's the concern here, right? What did you say, Brandon?
It might even be delayed. They might.
Right. That's what I was getting at. Because this could be a really big DLC. They could be deciding to add a lot. Because they're adding so much, it may get delayed. Which a lot of Zelda stuff gets delayed. That's you know, kind of one of the things, because they always have these.
Breath of the Wild.
Yeah. But here's the thing, though. Just because they didn't show it doesn't mean that it will be delayed. I mean, we were freaking out about the NX before we knew what the Nintendo Switch was, and we just thought, like, how come they haven't shown us yet? How come they haven't told us anything yet? We don't know anything. It's supposed to come out in March, and we don't even know the name, and it's in November. Like, you know, it's just kind of like... But Nintendo's doing things differently now. They're just showing us stuff, telling us about stuff, like, right before it comes out. Like, no one expected Dune to be coming out in December. No one. People were freaking out that... Until today, we didn't even know the release date for Xenoblade 2, but it's coming out December 1st. So,
which is way earlier than I expected.
Which is way earlier than we expected, exactly. So just because Nintendo's not showing anything doesn't mean it's not on time, you know?
True.
But it is still weird that they announced the date for the DLC, but not for Breath of the Wild. So, possibly it's being delayed. Possibly Nintendo's just screwing around with us because they love to do that. Or maybe they just didn't want to highlight Zelda when you have things like Skyrim being shown off and things like Xenoblade being shown off, which has similar audiences. People kind of love like those fantastical medieval kind of settings, you know, even though Xenoblade's a little different, but I still feel like it's close to that audience. So maybe they want to showcase those games and not let the Breath of the Wild DLC really, you know, take away from this spotlight of all these different new games. You know what I mean? And honestly, they don't even need a direct for the DLC. They could just release the trailer one day. It's like, hey, here's a trailer, you know? And it's basically what they did when they announced the 2 DLC packs. They're like, oh, look, this is what's happening, and everyone's going to talk about that for a week, you know? So maybe they'll just wait for a slow week and like, boom.
They didn't even do a trailer. They just, they just like show off.
They posted an image on Twitter or something. Yeah, you know?
No, that's all it was. Just an image.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, for DLC Pack 1 was weird as well. Because we didn't get a trailer for that at the first either. All we got was all of a sudden, oh, here's what's in the pack. Here you go. This is what it is. Like on their site or something. It was just a link to their site with, oh, here's information about DLC Pack 1.
Right.
So I hope they do a little bit. If DLC Pack 2 is supposed to be bigger than DLC Pack 1, it's supposed to be like the main part of why you're getting this DLC. So hopefully they come out with a trailer or something.
Right.
And don't just be like, oh yeah, here's a link to the site. You can figure it out for yourself. And it's like, I hope they do a little bit more than that, but I don't think they needed like an entire direct. And I don't think they had to show it during this direct, though it could have been nice, but then again, as you said, it could overshadow some games, especially games like Skyrim.
Right.
Like those are very similar games.
Yeah. So
like,
I do...
Everybody compares Zelda to Skyrim.
Right. I
like,
mean, even though they're very different, they also share some distinct similarities that bring about the same audience.
Big fantasy open world game.
Right. Exactly. Fantasy, medieval, open world games that brings in a certain audience. So, I mean, I know a lot of Zelda fans are excited about Skyrim Switch, myself included. So, you know, Let that game sell. I mean, I'm sure Nintendo wants to really help up Bethesda here. They are really putting some really awesome games on the system. So give them the attention they deserve. You know, so that could be the reason. Or you know, it could be getting delayed, or Nintendo screwing with us, or maybe they're not even sure if it's going to be ready yet. You know, maybe they're still not sure about it, which is why they a lot of times they just give us like soft release windows because they're still trying to figure it out. They're not sure just how well they will advance in development, because that's the thing. They're still developing this stuff. Nintendo didn't have this stuff created beforehand and just took it out of the game. No, they're legit, bro. They're making new content for the game for us, actually creating more for the game. So if we want more than the game that will take us hundreds of hours to actually beat, they're giving it to us. So yeah.
To be honest, I still haven't found all the memories yet. I've been meaning to go and do that during a stream, but I just haven't.
Oh, let me know. I'll help you. They're actually kind of hard to find if you don't know where they are. It's a challenge. It definitely is. I remember there's this one that I just couldn't find. Like, my brother had found it though, and I saw he only got like 3 memories, but he had found the one that I didn't find. I'm like, where is it? And the picture for it is just like trees. It's like, are you serious? There's like 1,000 forests in Breath of the Wild. What?
I still only have like 80, 90 of the shrines or something like that.
That's
like there's still like 30 shrines left. I'm like, where are they?
Yeah.
Where could they be? I'm looking at where I've been. I'm like, well, there's some gaps, but it's not like this huge unexplored area. It's like, where are all these things? Like every time I play that game, there's new stuff to see.
It was really challenging for me to find all the shrines, but it was kind of funny. I mean, I'm not gonna spoil it for you, right? Because maybe you'll have a similar sort of situation, but the final shrine, I'm just gonna say, I want to give you a hint, but put it this way: there was a shrine that I didn't respond to the radar, which is weird, but it wasn't a shrine quest. So that's why I had a hard time finding it. And it was weird because it was like right under my nose, like a lot. Like I passed by it so many times and I was just like, what the hell? And one day, I don't know, I was just like, I'm like, wait, there's this thing here, I'm gonna do this random thing just because, and then boom, it came out. And I was just like, what? Are you serious? This has been here this entire time. Now I'm not gonna tell you where it is because I feel there's a chance that you may go and have the same experience.
I turned my radar off.
Right.
Because I was finding them so often, and now I'm like, well, I can't find
but now
any
you kind of need it, right?
I can't find any, so I'm like, oh, yeah. Turn it back on.
Yeah, exactly. It would have been interesting if they didn't give it to you in the beginning, and like you found it, like you got that ability later on.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, just an interesting option to not ever even receive until later on when there are less shrines. You know what I mean? Because in the beginning, it is kind of annoying, right? But if you get it once you hit like the 60 shrine threshold, then you know it's different. But then again, you know, then they have to give you a notification system, and they want it to be natural within the flow of the game. So then, why would you randomly go to Impa or whatever? You know, and the people, the scientists in the town. What's the town called? Forgot the name of the town. Hateno Village. Like, why would you go there randomly after 60 shrines? Unless they had like a mailbox system where you got letters and stuff, like in Wind Waker. Then that'd be kind of cool. Like, oh, you hit 60 shrines. Hey, this new technology we just figured out. Here, come and upgrade your tablet, your Sheikah Slate. So,
that was always nice. Wind Waker and Twilight Princess.
We'll see what happens with the DLC. I'm not gonna cry foul yet, but even if it is delayed, here's the thing: back on the Wii U era, or even the Wii GameCube era, where if Zelda was delayed, everyone was really upset because they had nothing else to play. But for the Switch, there's just too much games to play.
You got too much to play,
right? Like just for 2017, right? Like just 2017 here. Not games that have already come out, including Pokemon. We have Fire Emblem Warriors, we have Skyrim Switch, we have Doom. We have NBA 2K, well, that just came out. There's all the sports games, FIFA, all that stuff, the wrestling game. But, I mean, we're getting a lot of indie games like Morpheus Law, we're getting Mario Odyssey, we're getting Xenoblade 2. That's a lot of stuff right there. Like, I know I'm getting Skyrim, I know I'm getting Xenoblade, I know I'm getting Doom, I know I'm getting Mario Odyssey. And those are 4 games that are that's a lot. there's a lot to play right there. You know,
Just
and I still haven't gotten
Odyssey
Mario
and
Rabbids
Xenoblade
or
is gonna
Pokken
take hundreds of hours.
or Arms. What? What?
I said just Mario Odyssey and Xenoblade 2 alone are going to take hundreds of hours.
Right, exactly. You know, it's just kind of there's a lot of games, but I still think we'll get the Breath of the Wild DLC before the end of the year. I just think they're just being coy about it for whatever reason. So
yeah, they like to do that, and it doesn't make much sense. But then you're like, well, got the information. Still doesn't make any sense, but at least I have it.
At least the Amiibo pre-orders are now ready to go for that. Oh, I didn't pre-order them. Oh God, I didn't get my Metroid Amiibo.
I don't have enough money.
Yeah, I mean I don't have money
I
either.
do, but there's games. I want to buy games more. It's just like games, Amiibos that work with games.
yeah. So speaking of which, they haven't announced any Amiibo for Xenoblade yet, have they?
No, I was looking. I was like, special edition. That's $100. Maybe I should just get an Amiibo instead. I was like, oh, Xenoblade Chronicles 2 Amiibo. Nothing. I was like, oh,
well, maybe they haven't announced it yet.
It's true. They could have some, but they haven't announced them yet. But that special edition is super awesome.
Yeah.
And it's also $40 more, and I'm like, Nintendo, both hate you and love you for putting this bundle out, because, gosh darn it, I almost have to have it now.
Yeah. I think I'll hold out for Amiibo for this one. I think I'll be okay with just getting, unless it comes with a crazy poster, then maybe I'll have to get the special version. But we'll see what happens.
It's got a 220-page art book. Hardback. Yeah,
and that's cool, but I like putting stuff up on my wall, and unless I intend on like ripping out the pages, I'm not gonna, I'm gonna look at it a couple times and that's it.
I just like the idea of having it. I probably won't look at it that much, but just having it.
No, yeah, I get it. It's just a collector's item for sure, definitely. So,
I still have like several Amiibos in the box. It's just literally just sitting there in the box.
No, I'm at.
I'm looking at 5 Amiibo in the box right now.
That's funny. No, I take my Amiibos out. When I first started collecting, I want to say I'm collecting Amiibo. When I first started, I really just buying Amiibo because like I debated keeping them in the box, and then I was just like, no, I want them. Actually, I mean, I started getting Amiibo, I guess, when for Star Fox came out. I was like, oh, this is really cool. I want the abilities you can get from the Star Fox Amiibo. So I was like, I'm gonna use these power-ups, and it's gonna be fun, and I'm gonna have these cool Amiibo.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, whatever. I have the ones I have are like do the same thing all my other Amiibos do. So I'm just keeping the box.
Mm-hmm.
The boxes are really cool.
Yeah. No, yeah. I mean, it looks good. Like, I actually came up with like one of the first videos I did was basically me doing an Amiibo unboxing where I showed people how to like cut out the bottom. So, like, you could take out the Amiibo and use it, but you could put it back in and put the Amiibo box over it so it looked like it was still inside the casing.
I didn't see that video.
No, you didn't see that. I mean, it was one of the first videos I ever made. It was awkward. But, so it's just kind of funny. But, sales have been going really well for the Switch. So, they have all these Amiibo coming out, and there's going to be more Amiibo probably. And I keep on hearing about MPD and just Switch destroying in Japan, and they're not even meeting demand yet. And they're destroying in demand. It's still selling pretty well here as well. Apparently,
it was
Europe,
the top seller in August. It's been the top seller in America every month, but 2 months since it's released.
Right, and that's arguably just because they couldn't meet demand. Like, they could not create enough units to sell more. They couldn't create more units than what other companies were selling at the time for that month, which is kind of crazy. Like, look, that's pretty much their only limitation, getting those systems out there. I'm hearing people talk about this thing, bro, and it's kind of weird because I was at Walmart the other day, like, actually it was yesterday, and I heard these people talking about the Switch, and I'm like, oh, it's $300. I was like, oh, $300 is a lot. I'm like, is it? And it's just like, it doesn't even come with a game. I don't know, it's a huge investment, blah, blah, blah. And just like, I mean, I understand a lot. Not everyone can afford that. Especially from a parent's perspective, like, oh, I gotta pay $300, and they don't even get a game, Which is really cool because the Mario Odyssey is a pack-in game that's coming out this holiday season. That's gonna sell a lot.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I think it was gonna sell regardless, but it's just kind of cool that that's gonna be out there. I kind of want the Joy-Cons, kind of.
Yeah, they're like dark. They're like a cherry red.
Yeah, like
instead of the
I like
neon
that
red.
color. Yeah, I know.
It's gonna be 380 though, because it comes with the case, carrying case as well.
Yeah.
Mario themed carrying case.
So I mean, is it even cheaper? Not really.
It's not, but it's cool, and you can't get the Joy-Cons other than in the bundle, as far as I know.
For now.
For now.
For now. Yeah, I mean, yeah, actually, I mean, when you think about it,
It is
it's not
cheaper
really.
if you.
Is it?
It's cheaper if you want those Joy-Cons. It's because then you'd have to buy Joy-Cons. Like if they only sold them
Because if you
separately,
want
it'd
the
be
special,
cheaper.
right? Because if you
yeah,
consider the
you don't
amiibo to
have
be
to buy
special, not the amiibo, the Joy-Cons to be special, then yeah, I guess. But if you just see them as just Joy-Cons, just a different color,
And no.
because I mean, yeah, I mean, a game costs $60, so that's $360. A carrying case, a $20 carrying case, people can find cheaper carrying cases. You know, maybe it's a really cool carrying case. I mean, I'm sure it is.
Yeah,
I've
but
seen
most
it.
of the ones I've seen for the Switch have been 20. I think the one I
Yeah.
bought was 20. It came with a screen protector and
Yeah.
stuff.
So I
think
mean,
they
I
protected
just
as
think
well.
that this Mario bundle is just kind of like their collector's
It's
edition.
convenient.
You know, it's just meant for people who love Mario and just want to get that carrying case. You know, with the system. But here's the thing, though: it's a digital version, right? So you don't even get the Mario cartridge of the
Yeah.
case, right? So people who are really into collector's items, this bundle isn't really, you know, like if it came with Mario Odyssey like as a cartridge and the case, then I could see it being more worthwhile to collectors. But like, if I don't know, you know what I mean? Like it just kind of seems counterintuitive to pack in the game digitally, but create these collector's items and Joy-Cons and carrying case. You know what I mean? Like if it's your collector, you want to collect all of it. You know, so it just seems a little counterintuitive to me when I think about it like that. But regardless, you know, it's cool.
It's
and
mostly marketing.
yeah, I mean, regardless, it's gonna sell. It's gonna sell, and I mean, it's gonna get more Switches and Mario's in people's hands.
I mean, when you see the bundle on the shelf, it catches the eye very well.
Yeah,
And I think it's just marketing. So when they see it instead of just seeing this, Nintendo Switch, they'll see Mario. Oh, Mario's awesome. Let me buy that.
right. You know,
Instead of, because the game feels there's more disconnect seeing the game sit next to a normal Switch, because you don't put that together as much as if it's in a bundle.
yeah,
So I think it's just marketing and getting people to buy it off the shelves and stuff. And
right.
most people are like, Mario Switch.
And it
then
also
they
could
see
be
a
like an
bundle and they're like,
experiment
"I'll buy
too,
it."
though, right? Because by selling it at $380, that's pretty expensive. Like, I mean, now the pricing is no longer like a mainstream pricing. You know what I mean? So maybe they just want to see how well it will actually sell. You know, like so they're just playing the
Mario
field.
on it, though.
It has
It's got
Mario
Mario
on it,
slapped on
right? It
it,
has
yeah.
Mario on it, so it's gonna sell regardless. But you know, they may get a better idea of how they should continue with their pricing structure and bundles in the future. I mean that's how it always works. You see how your
think it would've been
your
smart
products
to
react, and then you react to that. What?
I think it might have been smart to release it at 360 and keep the carrying case, like throw it in for free or something. I
Yes,
think that
because
would.
then it
But
would have
I guess
actually
they
been
didn't really
worth it.
need to do that. The demand for the Switch
Right,
is
they don't
so
need to
high.
do
It's
it,
like,
right?
It's gonna sell
They
anyway.
didn't
It doesn't
even
need
need-
to do anything.
That's the thing. They don't even need to release a Mario pack in because it's gonna sell anyways, right? But the idea to have a Mario in with the system, this is like the cheapest way to do it, and so they're doing it. They're having Mario come with the system. There's gonna be that bundle for it. So I mean, obviously, I'm not gonna get it. I already have a Switch. I don't really,
have to pay for.
right? Unless I think it's gonna be, no, I'm not gonna scalp. But some people might try to scalp them because it could be rare.
Don't be douchebag. Scalper.
So yeah, well, yeah. So I have no reason to get it, So
Yeah.
that's it. So when is the Sony conference?
That's at your time, 3 a.m.
3
Very
a.m.
late.
Yeah,
Probably
that's
something.
in 4.5 hours. 4.5 hours from now.
It's gonna be 2 a.m. for me. I probably won't watch it live.
Yeah, I don't
It's gonna
know.
be 2
I mean,
a.m.
the
I'm
thing
just
is,
like,
I don't even know I'm not gonna care about most of the stuff in the conference, so I don't know.
The one big reveal. if
I'll
it
just
happens.
pay attention to Twitter in the morning, I guess. We'll see. Yeah, I probably won't watch it because it's late. Exactly. We'll see what happens. Maybe it's not even gonna be that significant. Like maybe this is just
I know.
random hype talk. You know what I am gonna be looking for though? Super Metal Dave's video because he said that he would launch the next video of his mystery.
He's sticking by his theory that something big is coming, because every time any news of that has come out,
I mean, according to him, it's not a theory; it's a fact. You know, he knows things, so it's just kind of like, okay, yeah, whatever.
Something big is coming, and I really do hope it's something big.
I hope it's interesting,
because it could make a good competition, and that always
right. I mean, at this point,
new ideas and new stuff. So
the Switch catching up to the PS4 is gonna take a long time, right? But now that the Switch is out, it's probably going to be selling better than the PS4 like every month, and that just counts systems. That doesn't take into consideration that the Joy-Cons are basic collector's items. So people are going to sell a whole bunch of those, way more than any other sort of controller. And the install rate like is really, really good. Like the ratio between games and system is incredibly high, and it's just interesting because since a lot of it has to do with the fact that the Switch is portable. You know, people want more games portably. So they just buy more games. So it's interesting. I don't know. If the Switch is gonna make a lot of money, it's probably gonna have a really big part of the market share in pretty much the entire world until it's done. So you know, I don't see it slowing down at all anytime soon. Yeah. I mean, salesmen have been great.
It's just that you always have that fear because every time a company comes back or does really well, like better than all the other companies, their next system always sucks. It's just a fact. It always happens every single time.
Well, not every time.
I mean, the PS.
Not every time.
Almost every time.
The PS1 to the PS1 to the PS2 is an example where they dominated the market two generations in a row. With glowing, you know, but
it wasn't nearly as big. Like I don't think the PS1 was that much.
Go look at the numbers, bro. They had like 60-something% of the market share. Like that's a lot.
Still, there were only two companies out that really mattered at that point.
Well, I mean that's because the PlayStation 1 put the Saturn into the water. Like the Saturn would have done well if it wasn't for the PS1. It basically stole every single It stole a lot of the market share from Nintendo. Like, it basically cut Nintendo's market share in half, and it took out, like, 90% of Sega's market share. So, Sony did a lot. And the PS1 dominated that era. It wasn't close. They dominated that era. And the PS2 dominated the era even more so. Because, basically, it was a cheaper DVD player than every other DVD player on the market. But also, and that's when DVDs were new. And it also played games. So there was literally no way that the PS2 could not destroy everyone. So, but I think I mean, technically Nintendo did it too. Nintendo did it too, though. The NES dominated for 7 years, and then the Super Nintendo came around, and actually it was losing for a couple of years. But by the end of things, Nintendo made more money than Sega and had more of the market share overall with the Super Nintendo compared to the Sega Genesis. But, I mean, it won, but it was a close competition. So, you know, Nintendo kind of did it as well. And, I mean, if you count handhelds, Nintendo always wins the handheld market. So, there's that to consider.
Well, that's true, but they always dominate.
They've always dominated the handheld market. Right.
But lately, I think there's been a lot more examples of companies getting really big and then just, like, doing nothing.
Yeah,
I can think of 3 separate examples right now. I can think PS2 to PS3, Wii to Wii U, and
360
Xbox 360
to Xbox One.
All of them, their successors were noticeably worse than the originals in pretty much every way.
Right. Well, the PS3 ended up, you know, kind of getting pretty good market share.
Came back, but
it still got last place, right? But I mean, it's kind of crazy because even though it got last place, they still sold over 60 million units. Like that's not bad, you know. But they had to make a lot of sacrifices. They lost a lot in profits to get to that point, you know. But so they suffered. But they suffered during that era. And what happened? They came back really strong with PS4, right? So now Nintendo suffered with the Wii U. What happened? They're coming back really strong with the Switch.
I'm just worried if the Switch does too well. I just hope that they don't dip back down.
I
think they're kind of I think they probably will be fine for the next generation. I was worried a little bit that they're going to do something stupid.
I don't think it's going to be that way, because I think Nintendo has really worked on a lot of their issues. Now, I don't know if they'll be as... We don't know how successful the Switch is going to be yet, right? But I don't see it being as much of a drop-off as, like, from Wii to Wii U. Because one part of the problem with Wii to Wii U is that Nintendo lost the casual audience. They basically gave up a significant part of their core audience, right, with the Wii era, to focus on getting all the casuals. Like, those numbers came from a lot of casual gamers. And what happened? Most of those casual gamers just moved on to smartphones. That's it. They moved on to smartphones. So basically, Apple took away from Nintendo's profits from the Wii era. So they, didn't transition well in the Wii era. They were hoping to kind of catch some of that fire from the Wii era. Didn't happen. Okay? But now Nintendo, with their systems, they're focusing on core games. Their casual focus is in the mobile market when they make things like Mario Run and Pokemon Go. Okay, but for the system, it's a core focus, and I don't think that's going to change. So they're not going to lose an audience when they move over to the next generation.
Yeah. And
so we'll see what happens. It's hard to say. You never really know, but I don't think it's whatever transition it is. They may even do better. That's possible. So it's not just because a company does well doesn't mean it won't do well the next generation. There are there are examples for that as well. So we'll see what happens. Another thing to consider, though, is that I am not too sure if Microsoft will stay in the console market.
I'm not either.
Yeah. And it's not. I'm not saying I want to see them go, but it's just kind of like it's like they're not even trying to save the Xbox One. Like they came out with Xbox One X, and the naming is just terrible, right? Like it's like Xbox X One. Like what? It's the original Xbox X. You know what I mean? Like it's just like they're basically just repeating.
Their naming has been horrible.
Bad. Yeah, bad. The Xbox was good. The Xbox 360 was good. But Xbox One and Xbox One X, I just don't think are good names.
And then you get the S too. So you get the S and the X, and that sounds very similar.
Yeah, and that S2, X2, exactly. So I don't know. It's not like with the Wii, where the Wii's a weird game, it's kind of corny, but people know what it is. It stands out. The Xbox One, it just kind of like. See, I said Xbox One, but I wasn't trying to say Xbox One. I was just trying to say the Xbox branding. Like it's just confusing. Yeah. It's not weird. It doesn't stand out. It's just confusing. So that's the problem with it. And I don't know. Like it seems like they kind of care more about just like being able to run games with on Windows through systems and such. They might just transition to kind of more like a streaming sort of software. Like maybe create like a Steam or like a Netflix for Xbox sort of thing. You know what I mean? Like not really an actual hardware system. Like the Xbox One X is not meant for a large audience. Like it's not going to sell over 20 million units or anything close to that. It's going to be a small market of people that want to play their Xbox games with higher resolutions.
Yeah.
So, and they're investing a lot into that. They may decide not to do that. I don't know. I mean, maybe they're coming up with something interesting. Maybe they're going to create their own dedicated VR device. You know what I mean? Maybe that's the future for Microsoft, where they just stick to like kind of more like a streaming service with Xbox Live and their games, but they invest their hardware into making VR work. That would be interesting. They could do it. They have the technology, they have the resources, the power. They can rebuild the Xbox brand, make it stronger, faster, more powerful. So yeah,
I just don't. The X is just a weird situation.
Yeah, it is.
It's like they don't really have exclusives. I think that's their biggest issue. They're more expensive, much more expensive than the Switch, and more expensive, $100 more expensive than the PS4 Pro.
Yeah.
For what, with a lot of their games, are going to be similar visuals. I mean, look at third parties just aren't going to use the hardware to the best of extent. We're already seeing that with third parties using the same upscaling techniques on the X as they're on the PS4 Pro, while first party games are doing true 4K. And I think it's just weird. And then you don't have exclusives. I think the main reason a lot of people buy consoles over another console is what games can they not play on that console that they can play, that they can't play, or what games can they play on that console that can't on the other consoles. And the Xbox One X is like, there's not really anything that you can't play on something else. That you can't play on the PC, or on the PS4, or on the Switch, or sometimes on all three. And it's like, what does Microsoft have that they don't already put, or is already being put by somebody else on something that is not their product, that in many times is cheaper than their product, yet offers a similar experience?
I mean that's the thing. If you're not really an Xbox fan, to your casual consumer, they're not really adding much to the table, you know? So it's going to be weird. I wonder how much Microsoft spent in R&D, you know, research and development for the Xbox One X, because it's an expensive system. So I wonder if maybe they just like put in parts that they knew would work, or if they actually did a lot of research and development for this. Because if they did, and they don't make any money off of this, like, because it's not going to sell. It's not a mainstream system. It's not going to sell to a lot of people. It just won't, because it's really expensive. So, like, are they just trying to sell it to the people who already have an Xbox One, but all they care about is better graphics and stuff? So they're going to maybe get a million people to buy a system. Will that be enough to make up for the R&D? You know, I don't know. Or maybe it's not even about money for them. Maybe it's really all about like street cred and having a better 4K system than Sony. I mean, if you look throughout the history of the gaming industry, a lot of times decisions were made solely out of rivalries, and not necessarily for the money, but more for status. And when you have a lot of money like Microsoft, that actually is not really that far-fetched. So who knows? Maybe they have something planned, and maybe, you know, they're just testing the 4K market. So when their next system comes around, if it comes around, you know, they will be more prepared. But the reason I even brought up the struggles for the Xbox, right, is that there's a chance that they won't have another console. What does that mean? We could be looking at a situation where it'll be basically just Nintendo versus Sony, right? At which point, if Nintendo maintains the setup they have now, they're going to get all the third parties, you know? So even if they have like that fallout of the Switch, I don't think they really will, because they're going to gain more consumers that would have otherwise had a PlayStation or an Xbox, since there's only two companies that are seriously competing with each other instead of three. That's a possibility, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think it will affect PlayStation more than Xbox, because as you can see, like a lot of times, and Nintendo said this themselves, they're not directly competing with Xbox or PlayStation, and you can see this very easily. It's very obvious that they're not. In many ways they are, but in a lot of ways they're not.
See, Brandon, I actually am going to disagree with you. So hear me out for a moment, though, unless you want to finish your point first.
Oh, yeah, let me finish it. So
okay.
I think, because they go for more, on a software side, it won't change much, but on a hardware side, it could cause PlayStation to not be as competitive as before, because right now, they're toe-and-toe trying to figure out who can make the most powerful system. Meanwhile, Nintendo's just over here like, okay, you guys have the most powerful system. We're going to try to get the most games and have the most convenient system. So I think in that way, they're not competitive, though I think it's not necessarily in their market share. It's in the types of systems that they create that they're not competing directly.
Right. So,
but yet the PlayStation is, so they could lessen advancements, raise prices, do all kinds of stuff, because they have a monopoly on that type of video game console.
So, you know, I feel that a lot of people have similar opinions to you, like even big-time YouTubers, and I disagree with you to an extent. You're right, but there's also something, I have my own perspective on it that I think, basically, in my opinion, I think Nintendo is competing with Microsoft and Sony, because there are people that don't necessarily care about 4K, but care about playing the games. They care about playing Call of Duty. They care about playing, you know, FIFA. And if the Switch gives you those experiences, but on the go, guess what's going to happen? People are going to move on to the Switch. Okay? So what does that mean? Nintendo's literally stealing market share. People that would have otherwise bought a PS4 or an Xbox, and they're going to get a Switch instead. So they are competing with them. Like, literally, they are stealing market share from them. So anyone, and no offense, Brandon, I'm not saying you're dumb or anything. You're right. But I'm just telling, like, make no mistake, Nintendo is taking money away from Microsoft and Sony with the Switch. They are.
Yeah.
So
I agree with that completely. It's
so,
just
but
it's mostly in the hardware base. That
right.
I think
Well,
they're
I
not
mean,
directly competing.
then
Everywhere
and
else they are. I think it's in the hardware and the type of hardware that they create that they're not directly competing. Which is
right.
why the Switch is not,
So
the most powerful 4K
right. Well, I mean, you're
box out
right
there.
in that extent.
They're
They're
not
not.
competing in that sense.
So here's the thing, I don't like wording it that way. I see it as that they are competing with them, but they are not using the same strategy. But they are competing with them. Does that make sense? Right? So that just, I mean, it really just comes out of semantics because they are competing with them, but they're not. They're doing it in their own way. They have their own style of doing things. And if you look at the history of Nintendo, right? So basically, the NES came at the perfect time to just completely destroy the market. They had no real competition. Okay, so when that happened, Nintendo was just dominant. They just did what they wanted, right?
Yeah.
So they did what they wanted. And then when the Sega Genesis came around because basically Nintendo was in no rush to bring out Super Nintendo because they had all the money, they were making money, they didn't need to rush out the next generation, right? But Sega Genesis came out a few years before the Super Nintendo, and you know what? It started gaining market share, and all of a sudden Nintendo's like, oh wait, someone's actually competing with us? What the hell? This is a different Nintendo headed by Yamauchi, who is really hardcore, really competitive, and he didn't really care about games. He just cared about status and building like an empire, right? So here's his company threatening his empire, so Nintendo started gearing up and going up hard against Sega. It was like an arms race, kind of like Nintendo versus Sega in the early 90s was kind of like how Microsoft and Sony are now. But then once the PS1 because they fought so hard against each other, that opened the doors for the PS1. And PS1 completely destroyed the both of them. So it's just kind of funny how that worked out. But, with the PS1 and PS2, Nintendo lost more and more market share, at least in the home console market. So,
yeah,
Nintendo started changing things around. Yamauchi left, Iwata took over. They started changing their philosophies a little bit. They started getting ready. When the GameCube wasn't doing so well, that led into the Wii era where everything was different. Nintendo started kind of going back to doing their own thing, but not out of a sense of, oh, we're better than everyone else. We don't need to, we don't need to try to compete with others, but because it's the only way they can survive, right? So that they changed. But with the Wii, they were going for a different audience. They were literally grabbing casual gamers, right? So, and that's kind of the reason why the Wii didn't do so well, because they didn't have casual gamers to really take anymore, not too many. But the Switch is more for gamers who care about playing Nintendo games and playing other good games on the go. But that means actual gamers, people who like playing games, not casuals who just like Wii Sports and tennis and doing push-ups on a board, and waggle dance or whatever you want to call it. Like those people are just play their stuff on their iPhones. You know what I mean? So they actually are getting gamers now. And yeah, they do their own thing. They invest in their own technologies. They work on creating amazing games in their own way. Right? They do it. And the people who develop the games, they do it as an art because they truly love it, like Shigeru Miyamoto. Right? But even though they do their own thing, and they have their own personal strategies different than the competition, they are competing for a lot of the same audience. So,
yeah,
I just feel like some people, everyone just says, oh, Nintendo marches to the beat of their own drum, and don't really understand. It's kind of like one of those things where like Nintendo said that the entire time of the Wii era, and people just heard that. It's like, oh, okay, this is how Nintendo is now, right? But the truth is that what Nintendo is now is different from what they were as the Wii. They beat to their own drum, but they're still trying to take away market share from Sony and Microsoft. Just I just want to make that distinction. They are, they pay attention to that stuff because whatever Microsoft and Sony do, if they change things around, they can steal away market share from Nintendo. So Nintendo has to pay attention to that. They're not going to make commercials saying that Sony or Microsoft suck, but they do plan and pay attention to the competition because they need to react accordingly to make sure they get as many of those gamers on their corner rather than Microsoft or Sony. So I hope it made sense there. I know I kind of talked a lot, I just want to make those distinctions.
I actually agree with all of that. I think it's just the way I worded it kind of made it sound like I wasn't implying those things, but I actually was implying all of that as well.
Right. Well, as I said, it's just semantics, right? Really.
Yeah. In the way Nintendo is competing with their hardware, it's not similar. So I think in that way, Xbox dropping out on the hardware side could affect Nintendo's less than it affects the PlayStation, just as far as where they go from there. Because if the PlayStation and Xbox keep competing and keep trying to see who can make the best system, then there's going to be new innovations and things are going to get better. Or
Right.
more powerful
Well,
and things like that. But
I see what you're saying.
It's less so what Nintendo
Right.
on their hardware. They base it less so off of that.
I
And
see what you're saying,
but they
but
still do.
the point I was making, right, is that if Microsoft leaves the home console market, right, even if let's say Microsoft has 30 million people. I'm just putting a number out there, right? I'm not saying this is the actual number. Just say they have 30 million people that are dedicated to just Xbox. Microsoft leaves the console market. So what happens? Let's say Sony gains 20 million of their fans, Nintendo only gains 10 million. Yes, Sony gains a leg up on Nintendo because they get more Xbox fans, right? But Nintendo is still getting 10 million Xbox fans that don't care about Sony. So it's not like it would still help out Nintendo because they would still get some people. Maybe they won't do better than Sony because maybe it'll help out Sony more than Nintendo, right? But Nintendo's still going to get more people. They're still going to make more money. So it's not going to hurt them, if you know what I mean,
No,
right?
I don't think it'll hurt them.
Right? So that's why I brought it up earlier, because when we talked about the concern, if Nintendo does so well, will it do worse later on? Just the possibility that Microsoft's going to lose more and more fans. A lot of those fans may go to Nintendo, even if most of them do go to Sony. It's only going to help Nintendo, is basically what I'm saying. So
I think it could
less
actually hurt
worried.
Sony in some ways.
Potentially,
Sony,
everyone goes to Nintendo.
Initially, it would help them because those fans may come to them. But if Sony starts getting stale, if they start overpricing, or not making new innovations in hardware, and they start getting start doing the same things slightly better, and they start doing more iPhone-like upgrades instead of like an entire new console upgrade, then a lot of fans could get really mad and they could actually move over to PC and Nintendo. They could actually hurt from that if Sony starts getting lazy because they don't have somebody making the same type of hardware. Then their hardware could suffer.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's, I don't know, it's weird because, let's just say it gets to a point where it's just Nintendo and Sony, and then Sony basically just copies everything Nintendo does. They're not going to lose third-party support, you know what I mean? They're going to still have third-party support. Sony has a lot of money, they can pay for exclusives and stuff. And on top of that, they make good games too. Sony has invested in game developers, right? Microsoft never really did. Sony has games like Uncharted and God of War, and those will only be on PlayStation. A lot of people are big fans of those games. I mean, if you go head-to-head, Nintendo's franchises versus Sony first-party franchises, Nintendo's going to win out overall. But it's not like it's going to be, complete and utter destruction. Sony has really good games. And if that's the only thing distinguishing the two, maybe Nintendo overall sells more than Sony, but Sony won't be that far behind, I think.
Yeah. Well, I'm a big Sony fan as well. So,
yeah.
I like Sony. So I'm not saying they're garbage and Nintendo's way better and it's the end of the world if they have a competitor. I'm just saying if there's possibilities that it could be negative.
Right, and actually, in a way,
depending on how they react.
This is a critical point, I think, for the future of the gaming industry, right? Because Nintendo is at a crossroads where if they continue where they're at, Nintendo will actually regain third-party support. Nintendo hasn't had good third-party support since the Super Nintendo days. Okay? So if they actually get back into the third-party mix, and they have quality first-party games, and Nintendo diversifies their systems, they make their systems more interesting than your standard home console, and they have the portability aspect to it as well moving forward in the future, Nintendo's going to do really well, especially since their franchises are also more marketable than, say, Uncharted or God of War. What does that mean? One of the big plans for Wata had was to make more investments with movies and with Universal. So they had the Universal parks now. They're going to have movies and TV shows coming about Nintendo games again. But in this generation where there's a lot more kids, more Pixar-related movies, that marketability right there could really do a lot. I mean, look at what LucasArts and just Star Wars, the entire franchise has done with the Star Wars branding. A few movies have led to so much. Nintendo, with their franchises, if they start creating these Pixar movies and they're good, right? If they find a Marvel hero sort of formula where they can basically just continue to make quality movies, or they will boost their sales significantly because Nintendo will put more of the Nintendo games and characters in the eyes of the viewers. and people buy more systems. So Nintendo has the power because their franchises are way better. So if one of the plans of Iwata is to get these quality movies out there and they start doing it consistently, it's gonna get even better for Nintendo. I mean, they're a big part of the Olympics. Like they're then they're gonna have this Universal Park open at the same time the Olympics in Japan. So Nintendo's doing a lot to really, start anew, like the name for Nintendo, opening the eyes to new gamers. Because there's a whole new generation now that don't know that much about Nintendo, and with all these different things, these characters, these movies, these parks, and obviously the Switch, they're opening up a lot of eyes. Brandon, you there?
Yeah, I'm there. I'm just listening.
Yeah. So, sorry, I went on a rant there. It's just kind of like they have a lot of potential, and they could squander it, right? But I mean, I guess the ultimate point I was getting at is that it's one of those things where I think this is a critical point, because whatever Sony shows off later, it could give us an idea of where Sony's headed, right? Because the thing is, if Nintendo gets that third-party support and they're on pace to do that and get comfortable and create good relations with third parties again, once they're in Nintendo's corner and plan on staying there, Nintendo is not going to struggle like they have over the last 15 years. They're going to be in a much better position.
Yeah.
And that's not something that Sony wants, right? Because if Nintendo's in a good position, it'll be a lot harder for Sony to compete with them and have a large market share. So, not that Sony will go away. I'm not saying that. It's just going to be harder for them to make as much money. And so what they need to do is basically they could, right? Like you mentioned that fear earlier, that what they show could conceivably just completely steer the minds away from the Switch, and all of a sudden oh, this thing's way better than the Switch, I'll wait for this. It comes out, maybe they have something that's coming out that's way better than the Switch, that's coming out spring 2018. You know what I mean? Right? So that's possible. And in fact, Sony kind of did something similar to the Dreamcast. People are really excited about the Dreamcast. They're like, oh, Sega's making a comeback. They're making all these really good games. The system's great. It's selling pretty well. And then Sony shows off the PS2. And then it has a DVD player. And it has all these other games. And it's way more powerful. And it's easier to develop for. And it's just all these different things. And they're marketing way better than the Dreamcast. And everyone's just like, oh, whatever. I'll just wait for the PS2. It's a little better. It has all the games anyways. It has a DVD player. So all of a sudden, people are like, I'll wait. And people stop buying a Dreamcast. And the Dreamcast just didn't sell enough to stay in the market, even though it was a good system. And if Sega had the money, they would have been able to make it successful. They weren't in a good position. So I'm not saying Nintendo has the money, so even if it's a competition, there's going to be a hard competition. The Switch isn't going away. But Sony could show off the system. They could show off something that could really detract from what Switch is doing right now. So we'll see. Sure. Sony, right now it's Sony's turn to make a play, and we'll see what they do maybe tonight. I hope it's cool. I hope it's interesting. I want to see this. I want to see a bloodbath. I want to see them go all out and just make the most awesome games and products. So we'll see what happens with that. I've been talking a lot, Brandon. Is there anything you want to add to that, or you feel about it?
Well, I think it's interesting because even if Sony announces a hybrid system and it works very similar to the Switch, and let's say it's twice as powerful and it's the same price or something, I still don't think that would be too detrimental to the Switch. And just because Nintendo has the most amount of exclusive games of any of the consoles, it has more than the other two consoles combined.
Right.
And their IP,
they have the games.
Not IPs. They have the games. They have the IPs. They can do gaming in a different way than Sony can, and then Microsoft can. So even if Microsoft and Sony announced, they're having these hybrid systems, they're way more powerful than the Switch.
From a hardware perspective, if they're better in every way, right? If they're better in every way than the Switch, right, including portability, so Nintendo loses the sell and the draw of their system, they're basically dependent upon their games, right? But you're right, Nintendo has such power with their games. They're the best. That would put more pressure on Nintendo to put more investments, create more games, release more of their cards. One of the books I've read, they talk about the Genesis, Super Nintendo era. A lot of people believe that we would not have seen the achievements we saw with Donkey Kong Country and Super Metroid if it weren't for that competition where Nintendo literally just needed to make better games than Sega to really stand out, you know? So if that happens, it would just mean better games from Nintendo, which is hard to believe because they're coming out with some really amazing games. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So, you know, we'll see. I'm not worried. So there's actually one more thing I want to talk about. And nothing significant. Yeah, well, it is significant. And that's just Mario Odyssey. We haven't really talked about it. And we saw the game, and I mean, you know, I already know I want this game, but every time I see it, I know I want it more. And one of the concerns I had was that maybe there wouldn't be that much content. Like, I remember when one of the first trailers came out, Game Explain actually suggested that there might only be 4 worlds.
Which was kind of preposterous.
I know, right? But they keep on doing weird things. Like, I love Game Explain, but they keep on doing weird things that then they were just they just say stuff that was like, what? 4 worlds? What? You can't do cutscenes in Metroid Samus Return? Cutscenes? Yes, you can. Like, they're just saying stuff that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
You know? And, like, they even suggested that Final Fantasy 15 Mobile, like, Pocket Edition is going to be a actual legit possibility. I think that basically what I'm saying is the Game Explain guys are great. They're great Nintendo gamers. They know how to talk. They know how to show off their stuff. But I don't think they're not any more knowledgeable than a lot of people that are already on YouTube.
Yeah.
So, you know, like, their perspective is pretty much the same as any other person out there, in my opinion. But they're great. They're great at showing their love for games and just bringing it out there and putting out good content. And I love watching them. But, I mean, it's just kind of like, whatever. Mario, the point is that they said some weird things about Mario Odyssey that kind of contributed to my fears that maybe Mario Odyssey wouldn't be explains fake news, right? But anyways, I was a little worried that Mario Odyssey wouldn't have that much content, but after seeing this direct, bro, like, any concerns I had were entirely alleviated. There's like at least 12 worlds. There's probably going to be more. The worlds are huge. There's tons to do with them. Each one has like at least like 60 stars. Like, there's looks like so much to do. And then they have this whole camera mode, which looks really in depth, which is actually going to be pretty cool. So, and I like it because it's like you're exploring these worlds. All the menus are set up like brochures for these different lands. And then you have like a picture mode where you can take interesting pictures and share it with everyone. You can put like an Instagram and stuff and put filters. So that's like really interesting how they've just done all that. I like the package, like the theme. It's just basically, hey, we're going on vacation to all these different worlds and exploring, you know. And it's just like, check out Mario's adventure. You know what I mean? It's just yeah, I was worried, but I'm not anymore. Mario Odyssey is going to have the content, and it looks awesome.
Yeah. Real quick, can I just point out that we're not hating on Game Explain in any way? Like, I'm a huge fan of Game Explain.
I'm a huge fan of Game Explain as well. Like, I'd love to work with them. I watch their videos all the time. Like, but at the same time, you know, I want to be honest and just say that, you know, since they're so popular, their opinions are heard by many people, and unfortunately in this day and age, a lot of people don't, when they hear opinions, they take it as fact, and they're just like, oh, Mario Odyssey only has 4 worlds, oh, you can't do cutscenes in Metroid Samus Returns, you know what I mean? Or like, for example, MatPat, he finally created his timeline theory video for Breath of the Wild 6 months after everyone else, and so we all waited for MatPat to come out with this big timeline video, and we watch it, and I'm not saying it was a bad video, but like, he didn't really add anything new to the table. Like, everything he talked about, I actually talked about before the game even came out. You know what I mean? And, I mean, yeah, I'm not as good at making videos as he is, not yet, right? But mainly, my audience is a lot smaller, so not as many people see my opinion. But everything I said was before he did, and I'm not the only person. But people pay attention to him because he's really popular. But his opinion, in this case, is just not the most detailed or interesting that's out there. But everyone just listens to him because he's bigger. You know, so, but I love MatPat as well. Like, I don't want to hate on Game Explain or MatPat. I'm just saying, because they're really popular, people kind of just pay attention to their opinion way more than everyone else, and their opinions are just opinions. A lot of times they're wrong because they're just people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. But moving back to Mario Odyssey, I think that game is looking really, really good. I remember just
one more thing, by the way, I think MatPat is wrong about his timeline theory. Even though at one point I agreed with him, but I agreed with that before the game even came out. But I'll address this eventually in a new timeline video months from now. maybe weeks from now. I don't know. So yeah, okay, just go on, Brandon. I just had to say that.
Nice. But anyways, as I was saying, last week I said something along the lines of, I don't think Mario Odyssey is going to blow me away again. And I regret saying that because it definitely did. Maybe not to the extent that it has, but it definitely did kind of blow me away just how much content was in the game. Because that was something I was worried about. Now, I never thought that there was going to be like only 4 worlds. But when you see in the UI and stuff, it shows how many of the stars, or what are they, shines or whatever, moons that you need to get to the next world or to complete your current objective. And I thought maybe that could be like all there was. And then we saw all this gameplay of them getting moons, and while it wasn't like, you know, every 5 feet there was a moon, they seemed relatively easy to obtain. Like, it wasn't nearly as hard to gain a moon as it was, say, like a star in Mario 64. So I was like, if they're this easy to get, and there's only like 15 to 20 of them per world, like, that's not a big amount.
Right, but there's going to be at least 60.
But yeah, now we know that there's like 60 moons in each world. They said that it's estimated to be like 600 moons in the game. Like,
right,
but
that's just assuming that there's only 10 worlds.
Yeah, assuming there's 10 worlds, and we already know that there's 11 for a fact. There's 11 worlds.
So, I mean...
So, like, gosh, there's a lot of content. And they're just seeing how much the transformations can change up the gameplay. Like, even more so than we have seen before. Just, like, especially with the dinosaur that could, like, fly. Like, that just blew my mind. Like, literally, I was watching that, and
there's
I was
a lot
like,
of, like, little different kinds of dinosaurs in the game, and I love dinosaurs. I just love seeing all these different cute reptiles. They're colorful and awesome, and then the T-Rex is really cool. There's just something about dinosaurs in Mario games, bro. You know what I mean? Like, obviously you have Yoshi, but like in Mario 64 you had the Loch Ness Monster. You know, in 3D World you have that orange-looking Yoshi kind of creature that swims through water for you. Like, I just love like dinosaurs in Mario games. They're just always so cool and fun to play with. Just like a random thing about Mario. Mario has dinosaurs that are really fun
Mario
and
and
playful.
dinosaurs, they just go hand in hand somehow.
Somehow they do, right? I didn't even realize that till like now that Mario and dinosaurs is a thing.
I was like, there's so many dinosaurs in like all the Mario games.
Maybe I should make a video about that, like just the history of dinosaurs in Mario games.
Yeah.
Huh?
That'd be cool.
It's a plug. You know, yeah. So I don't know, man.
Steal that.
Mario Odyssey. Oh, I'll beat you to it. We'll see what happens. Maybe we should do a collaboration. That'd be interesting, right? Yeah, I don't know. I'm excited for Mario Odyssey. Obviously, who isn't, right? The game just looks amazing. And it's gonna have lots of content. That was my only concern, that maybe it wouldn't have that much content, but it has tons of content. So I'm not concerned. The game's gonna be amazing. I can't wait to play it. I mean, it's just that simple. So I think we've covered a lot, and of course there's gonna be more to talk about. But I think for now we've reached the end of this discussion. If anyone have any questions, you know, I'll kind of dwell in here for a couple more minutes to see if there's any other questions. But you know, I can tell people are going to sleep now. And we've covered pretty much everything. Brandon, is there anything else you want to bring up or say more about Mario Odyssey before either A, we answer some questions, or we end the night?
Yeah. Can I mention something very small?
Yeah, go ahead. Just go.
Yeah. I've seen some people complaining. In fact, I saw a lot of people saying that there were actually people like putting Z's up in the chat when Xenoblade Chronicles 2 was being shown. And that confused me because when I was seeing it, I was actually really, really like into what they were showing. And I was like, oh, this is really cool. The voice acting seems really good. The things they're showing off, the environments are beautiful. I actually did go back and look at the E3 footage versus the new footage we have, and the graphics have been updated a lot. Draw distance, textures, the amount of foliage in the world. Like, there's a lot of new stuff that they showed, and it seemed very interesting. So I just wanted to know, like, did you find it interesting, or was it boring to you?
Well,
did you think the
I mean, I understand why you might have seen that kind of stuff. So there's a few things I should say about that. One, Xenoblade is not nearly as appreciated as it should be. Like, it's kind of one of those things where, like, there are still people sometimes say, oh, when Nintendo doesn't come out with IPs. That's not true. Have you heard of Splatoon? Have you heard of Xenoblade? Oh, you know, the single best Japanese RPG of its generation? Oh, you haven't? Yeah. Okay, how about you shut the hell up? You know, like,
right?
There are people who just say things that don't even know, right? But Xenoblade is an amazing RPG franchise, and it's just one of those things where I guess it hasn't sold as explosively well, you know, so it hasn't created that large fan base yet, right? Which is unfortunate because Xenoblade, I think, should be right up there with Metroid, Mario, and Zelda in terms of those epic single-player games for Nintendo systems. But the other thing to consider here is that I don't think that the way they showed off Xenoblade 2 was good. So, I mean, I'm excited about the game, don't get me wrong, but I do feel like a lot of the presentations for Xenoblade have left a little bit to be desired. Like the environments are beautiful. I like how advanced the battle system looks now. I love the idea that there's all these different civilizations that are on giant tyrants, giant creatures that are the size of their own continents. So that's just a crazy idea, you know. They're taking the original Xenoblade idea where it's just two giant titans fighting each other, and they made it like 12, right? Except they're not robots; they're like actual animals. So it's really interesting. Like Xenoblade, the premise for Xenoblade 2 is really cool, but I don't think they presented it very well to many people. And in the Direct, we're kind of waiting for all these different game announcements, right? So they had a trailer, and then they had this kind of like slow-paced, not monotone, but not very exciting, like dialogue talking about random like location names in Xenoblade, and it was just kind of slow. And people were waiting for information; they wanted new stuff. You know what I mean? Like I like seeing Xenoblade, but you know I wasn't learning anything that was mind-blowing. I was just learning about areas in the game. You know what I mean? Like, okay, whatever. Like that's not that important to me right now. I want to hear about new game announcements. I want to hear about interesting gameplay possibilities, you know what I mean? So in that regard, I understand why there may not have been as much excitement for it. But Xenoblade deserves the excitement. I just think they didn't present it as well as they could have. But that doesn't mean it's not going to sell well.
That could be true.
Yeah. I mean, you know, you're also a fanboy, so like anything Xenoblade, you just...
That's true. Anything Xenoblade, I'm just like instantly... I'm watching it now.
No, that's not an insult, by the way, just so it's clear. I'm not insulting you.
I know.
I think your love for Xenoblade is very admirable. So,
the game is amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, I guess you know, we're at this discussion's end. I guess there's one more thing I heard people talking about. Game Explain. You know, just you know, people. There are large YouTubers out there like Game Explain, and Game Explain is not just one person, but you know, and MatPat, and they have their opinions, you know, and they do their own thing. And another thing is that, like, especially like Game Explain, I heard, you know, some of you guys suggesting they don't really do this, like, strategy guides anymore. They do, but they only do it when a game comes out, and it is not the primary source of their content. And the thing is that most YouTubers, as time goes on, you have to adapt to the market, right? Because you're always creating new content and seeing what people like. So Game Explain at first probably was just about strategy guides, but times have changed. People just want to hear people talk about games now, to a degree. So they still do it, but you're right, it's not their main thing anymore. I guess in a way it's false advertising, but I mean, I think it's normal. Everyone has random names. They don't mean anything. So at least Game Explain, you know they're going to talk about games and explain things about games at least, you know? So, you know, whatever. I think Game Explain is great. I think MatPat is great. I just have my disagreements with them. That's it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, guys, this has been a long discussion, but, you know, there's a lot to talk about, and I'm sure there's going to be more to talk about next Monday, or even right after tomorrow, because we got that Sony conference. So I can't wait for that. We didn't talk too much about Metroid, but I'm gonna put up my own little video of that for tomorrow. Yeah, I think the game is great. I think, you know, Brandon hasn't gotten a chance to play it yet, but it's a really, really good Metroid game. If you like Metroid, if you like action adventure games, you should totally play Metroid Samus Returns. It's like a great send-off for the 3DS. But I'll talk more about that tomorrow morning in a video. Stay tuned, check it out, share it. It's gonna be awesome. There's a plug for you. And I might stream it as well. But anyways, guys, tons of awesome games coming for the Switch. Really excited. Even the 3DS has some good ones coming. Again, Brandon, thanks for being there and having a great discussion with me.
No problem. I enjoyed it a lot.
Cool. All right, guys. So have a great night. We'll see you really soon. Bye.
Bye.